one of the biggest, like, huge red flags, I think that's like, no matter how great of a candidate you are, how great your experience is, if you talk negatively about your previous employers or your coworkers or a manager, it's almost like an automatic no. I think when you're preparing for an interview, it's very important to do research on what is their culture.
What would you say is the biggest disconnect between what companies are looking for and what job seekers think companies are looking for that's allowing there to be miscommunication between the process?
Yeah, I think that candidates think that companies are looking for perfect people. They don't.
Welcome back to the How to Get a Job podcast. If you are looking for a job right now, you are in for a treat because we have a phenomenal career coach here to share her expertise with us. Her name is Anna Chernyshova, and she is a outstanding talent in the career coaching space. We are honored to bring her on here today. Anna, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So to get started, I want to talk about where your inspiration of coaching comes from. When I read your LinkedIn profile, it says that it comes from really your own experience as a frustrated job seeker. So could you maybe bring us through the story of how you got started in career coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely from being a frustrated job seeker, that happened probably 10 years at this point. I was moving from like a sales leadership role to an HR role. And I was looking for a job, and I didn't really have professional, true recruitment experience at that time. So looking for a job was brutal. I had rejection after rejection after rejection. Even when I finally landed interviews, I kept hearing that I just don't have enough experience in HR. And it was really hard. I think if you have not been through like a frustrating job search, you will not be able to understand how frustrating it can get. And you kind of feel like giving up. So I think it really definitely starts from that experience of me struggling personally, but really truly I really never wanted to be a coach. It just kind of happened. I own a staffing agency, and I coach candidates, right? My team and I coach candidates every day. And every single time we had an offer, my team and my candidates would always say, Anna, you need to be coaching others, not just for the roles that you guys are recruiting for, but you need to be out there and you need to help people. So I got so many amazing reviews from candidates just working with them one on one to help them place them really for the role that we were interviewing for. And then I said, fine, I'm already doing this LinkedIn content creation. Fine, I will, I just put like a Calendly invite. If people want to book, they can book. I spent no time really thinking through that and started getting bookings. And I was like, oh God, now I actually have to create like a coaching plan and actually dive deep into this to make sure that my clients are getting the results, right? But I think the biggest thing as a job seeker then and even now Melissa and myself have coached over like 500 candidates and job seekers at this point. I think one of the biggest things that really, the reason I'm even still doing it at this point is because there's so many people that need help. And honestly, if I could help everyone, I would. But there's just not enough time in the day to be able to help as many people. Um, but I really genuinely just fell in love with it. And now Melissa and I, are launching a job search accelerator to help other people find jobs faster. So now became a very big passion of mine. It's something that I absolutely love doing. And I actually this morning when I logged in, one of my clients messaged me so excited that she got 2 job offers, and she's so excited. She's like, I don't know what to pick one. Can we get a call together so you can help me decide and negotiate further? So I think those things is what makes me so excited, and it makes my day. I don't do this for money. I do this because it's a huge passion of mine. And I think I've also been there. So I know what it's like when you're running out of savings and you still haven't landed a job. So I think I can resonate with my clients on a more deeper level because I've experienced it too. Um, but when I was looking for a job, trying to transition to HR and really being like a sales leadership person, really focusing on like quotas and sales, that was all I was doing all day, every day, and training people and to do the same. It was really hard to find a job that was specifically in HR because everybody wanted full like cycle of recruitment or real like HR experience, and I didn't have that at that time. I've done some things. I've hired, I've trained, I've interviewed for sales positions, but that was kind of it. That my experience ended there, so it was definitely very challenging.
And I have a follow up question for you. You mentioned obviously you have this amazing experience from sales, from HR, from recruiting, from coaching, and of working with over 500 people. And I don't know about you, but for me, from working with a lot of job seekers and even now coaching career coaches, I find the 80-20 rule applies to pretty much everything. And so what I mean by that is that like 80% of the questions, if there's 100 questions, 20% will answer 80% of the questions. Like there's a lot of commonality of the biggest mistakes that people make. What would you say are the biggest mistakes that people are making when job searching?
I think it's almost in stages, right? It's not just like there's the five biggest mistakes that people make. It's more so almost like in every stage of the interviewing, of every stage of the job search. So, for example, if they're applying for jobs, right? There's resume, right? So the first thing starts with the resume, and there's a lot of things that people do. One of the things that really like stands out to me right away is they don't position themselves for the right roles.
Mm,
Their resume is an issue, right? And it's not necessarily that it's a bad resume, it's just not written to position themselves for that specific job. So there's so many resumes that I see sometimes that are like 3 4 pages long. There's so much information, but hiring managers don't read the resume line for line, right? Like they don't care what you do in terms of your like tasks. They truly care about how were you the best performer on the team. Everybody wants the best performer on the team, right? Um, so really, one of the biggest things is position yourself for that specific role and really being very specific of what you put on your resume and how you position yourself for that role. So it's anywhere from obviously like metrics and achievements. But for example, a perfect example I can give to this is when I was looking for an HR role, I had a ton of sales experience. Well, if I put like all of these amazing, oh, I met sales quotas and hitting all these amazing sales goals, HR team will not care that I've done those amazing things because it's not relevant to the role. So it took me probably like 5 6 months to finally figure it out. And once I started positioning myself for HR roles, what I mean by positioning is for, like, for example, for my sales roles, I still trained the team. I still hired, I still interviewed, I still approved time cards, I did payroll, I did employee scheduling. So I did HR functions. They were not my main functions of the role, but I still did those things that are very much so relevant to the HR. So I would list really focus my resume on those functions. I'll maybe do like a bullet point or two on the sales part of it, but then I really would focus my resume and position myself for that HR positions that I was applying for. So I think positioning is huge. So many times, especially when I'm training someone, coaching someone who is more of like a, well, I'm a, jack of all trades, I've done so many different things, I want to list it all. It doesn't work,
mm.
right? I coached someone this morning who has applied to over 500 jobs, and she's had 2 interviews. She's very frustrated, and my first question to her, can I see your resume? And when I saw her resume and then I asked her for what job she's been applying for, it doesn't align. When the hiring manager has to think and almost sell you to the company, it's never going to work. You have to make it very direct and clear that you are that perfect candidate for this role. So I think in terms of that, so resume is obviously like the right resume building, positioning yourself for the right position, keywords, all of those those very important things, achievements, metrics, all of those things are very important, but it's very important to position it for the right role. And then I think once people actually start landing interviews, then they have some other things that they're doing wrong. For example, when they come to an interview, they don't do enough research. They don't connect with the interviewers on a personal level. It's a lot of the times when I hear the interview went like question answer question answer, a lot of the times it's not a good interview. If you're not able to connect with your interviewers on a personal level, I mean, the reality is we hire who we like, right? No matter how you kind of spin it, people hire people they like, people they want to work with. So if you are able to connect on a personal level with the interviewers, I think it automatically you become like one of their top 10 or top 5 candidates. I also think that the big thing is confidence, right? Interviews is one of those things that I think most people don't talk about. But when I talk to job seekers, especially if they've been looking for a while, their confidence is on the floor. How are they supposed to sell themselves and show all these amazing things that they've done, all these achievements, and if they're not confident, right? Like they're not excited, they're just kind of like, I'm too old for this job. I don't have enough experience for this job. Like their mindset is in there. So one of the coaching sessions that I do when I do one-on-one coaching is I really bring their confidence up. I help them see their value, share a lot of information about what's really going on in the market and what I see other candidates and clients are doing that's landing them the interviews. And then finally, I think it's even offer negotiation. I had a client who actually, we didn't do job negotiation together, but she negotiated and they pulled the offer. That's actually something that I have not have seen before with my clients, but they pulled the offer because she was asking for too many things. She was almost like there was like misalignment between of what was discussed and then after the offer was extended. So we had to kind of work through, okay, what did we do wrong? What did you kind of share, and like make sure that there's like alignment? Because one of the biggest pet peeves for hiring managers is that, let's say, for example, you say, um, I'm looking for a job, $80,000 a year, right? They give you $80,000 a year, and then you come back and you say, you know what, I actually want 90. It's one of those things that hiring managers just really, really strongly dislike. So small things like that sometimes can actually lead to something like a job offer being pulled.
Yeah, no, that would not be. And I think that's handling. Like that's a kind of like in my experience, I've always told like when I was working with job seekers, like odds are like as long as you're respectful, you're never gonna lose an
Mhm.
offer. You're never gonna lose a job
Mhm.
offer for negotiation. But to your point, if you put yourself in this corner and saying like my expectations are 80 and they give you exactly what you asked for to then go ask for more could be not only like they just see that as a sign of like it's like a red flag. It's like if you're doing this now,
Mhm.
what else are you gonna do in the future? Ellie, did you have any questions? I know you have a ton, so like I'll let you ask them
No,
all.
I've been loving just listening, and you have so much great knowledge to share. And I'd be really curious too if you maybe have any stories from your recruiting experience of like you or staffing experience where you've seen candidates do something wrong in their interview, and you share that now with your clients so that they don't make the same mistake.
All the time. I still sometimes when I interview candidates, I'm blown away that how unprepared sometimes candidates are for an interview. And we're talking like executive director level roles sometimes. Not because you expect that from an entry level candidate that they don't do enough research or something like that. But sometimes even higher ups do a lot of mistakes. They don't do enough research on the company. And then they don't come prepared to the interview. One of the biggest, like, huge red flags, I think that's like, no matter how great of a candidate you are, how great your experience is, if you talk negatively about your previous employers or your coworkers or a manager, it's almost like an automatic no. If and I think obviously every single person has had a bad manager, right? It's really important to phrase it the right way, to position it the right way. If you are, because I ask these questions. I always ask very difficult questions to the candidates. And definitely, like working with someone challenging, working with a hiring manager that was maybe a misalignment between them or something like that. Like those are the questions I ask very often. So I almost make you talk about these experiences, but it's really how you position of what happened and what you learned from it, right? We always, in every single question that the candidate is answering, no matter what happened, we always want to show them how it ended in a positive light. What are the actions you did to make sure that actually you show that like you were able to improve something, because it's real life, right? We hiring managers, recruiters want to see candidates go through challenges because it will happen in real life. So how you work through them is really important. But I think one of the really funny things that actually happened very recently, especially now because I am on LinkedIn, there is some information about kind of like where I live and so on. Sometimes candidates search and find out too much information about your recruiter and then like mention it during the interview, and that's very it doesn't feel great, right? It's like right away, like it's hard to even like the candidate when they mention like very personal things about like where you live, for example, a specific city that your kids go to school to. So I think it's very important to do the research, but to keep it professional, right? Like where you went to school and maybe the things I post about, the companies talking about things like that, but not to almost, there's a line. And
Yeah.
I think it's very important to keep that line there. What else? I feel like it's always sometimes the culture fit is a big one. I think I've had this happen so many times that the hiring managers interviewing the candidate, they have all the experience, they've done everything they want them to do, but they don't think that they're the right culture fit. So I think when you're preparing for an interview, it's very important to do research on what is their culture, right? Are they more relaxed? What are their values? So during the entire interview, you have to almost, this is why practice is so important, but you always want to, when you answer it, regardless of what question you're answering, to bring up one of those values, to
How
bring up, go ahead.
And I was gonna say, how do you balance between, okay, I got an interview. I've applied to hundreds of companies. I finally get this interview of a job. I start doing research on the culture, but how do I balance being authentically myself and letting the company, like making sure that the culture of the company still matches with my culture, and at the same time researching the culture and not being adjusting too much to it, where I do ultimately get the job and now I feel like I don't match the culture.
Mhm. I think it's important, like if you look at their core values or the culture, I think a lot of the times you're able to kind of align with something, right? It could be a specific core value or something. But I also think it's really important that if you're feeling during the interview and you are seeing red flags too, and you're like, "Oh, I don't think I'm the right fit for this. I don't think that this is going to be a good fit for me." I actually think you should walk away, be very professional, walk away in a very professional manner, never ghost, let them know thank you so much for your time, but this is unfortunately like I'm moving forward with another offer, or moving forward with my search, or whatever it is. I think that you're actually doing yourself this service if you realize during the interview that this is not the right fit for you, because then you're going to be missing out on a job that is the right fit for you. This actually happened to me too when I was job searching. I had 3 job offers that I got in the same week, and one of them was significantly higher salary than others. So I had to kind of make it, but they were not the right culture fit for me. So I had to make a decision for me myself. Am I going to take the best offer, or am I going to take an offer that is less, significantly less, but I see myself growing there and I see myself as being a really great culture fit for them and they are for me. So I think it's very important. I love that you asked that question, because oftentimes, even this happens to my clients too, they get so excited that they finally get that offer. Those offers are starting to come through, especially if you've been looking for a long time. It's hard, especially in the market we're in today. It is very challenging to walk away from an offer, but it's so important to sometimes to do that, because once you get that job, you looking for a job is going to be a lot more difficult because now you have an 8-hour job, and looking for a job outside of that is a lot more challenging. So I actually recommend that if you as a candidate see that this is not the right fit for you, to walk away.
Yeah. And especially to like if they're like if you're looking for a job and they're like, well, aren't you working there? You've only been a couple of months. Now you have to overcome the why you jump in and what makes you what makes us different, right? When you can't
Hmm.
go back and talk bad about the employer because they have bad
Yeah.
culture, back to the point that you were mentioning earlier. What would you say is the biggest disconnect between what companies are looking for and what job seekers think companies are looking for that's allowing there to be miscommunication in between the process?
Yeah, I think that candidates think that companies are looking for perfect people. They don't. Like a lot of the times, this is actually more, I see this more so in female candidates than male. But a lot of the times, female candidates, if they don't meet almost like every bullet point on the job listing, they won't apply.
Mhm.
And a lot of the times, hiring managers are willing to hire you if they see potential in you. But it's your job to show them that potential. It's your job to show them that you can. Maybe you're missing a couple of things, but it's your job during the interview to show how you can learn those things and all of your strengths, how the strengths that you have now overweight maybe a little bit of experience that you're missing in specific tools or something that you haven't done in the past. But I think a lot of the times it's not that the hiring managers are mean or don't want to hire you or whatever it is. I think the biggest thing is that they're looking for someone who can be a great fit for their team.
Yeah.
I think another thing, sometimes people get rejections and they're like, I don't know what I did wrong. I don't understand why they didn't hire me. But it's also really important to understand that there might be a situation that you didn't do anything wrong. I had a hiring manager I was talking to yesterday, and they had two candidates that they absolutely loved, and she called me and said, Anna, who do I hire? I
Yeah.
only have one position. I have to make a decision. I can't make a decision. They're so amazing that I don't know who to hire. So one of those candidates will get rejected, and
Yeah.
they've been through those 5 interviews and they did everything right. So I think it's
It's
very
not on
important to
them,
also,
right? It's like it's just
yeah.
unfortunately the budget and the resources that a company has. That's
Hmm.
the thing, especially when you're in the final three and you're in the final round of
Hmm.
interviews. At that point, it's not that someone is more qualified. I think it's just a better fit for the role. One
Yeah.
thing you said about like the disconnect is so true. Literally this morning, we're working with a career coach, and her business is exploding, and she's looking to hire a full time client success manager, right? And she's about to go on vacation, and she reaches out to our client success manager Lala and says, hey Lala, thank you so much, because we're going to support her. We're doing some screening, so my client success manager is going to do the first round of screening for the client success manager. So she's going to go on vacation, and so we crafted a job description, and literally, and the thing is like, this is my wish list. It's like
Hmm.
internally as a manager, we know is like it's our wish list. Like this is like, it's like a little kid on Christmas. This is our wish list. This is a priority. Like, mom, if I can only get one toy, I want this Hot Wheel or this Lego set. Like, this is our wish list. Now we're gonna put all of that wish list so Santa could potentially bring it in, or we're gonna put all this wish list so potentially we can find it. But we understand the real unicorns don't exist. The real 100% candidates don't exist. In fact, like I also like tell my job seekers is like, odds are you will get rejected more for being overqualified than being underqualified. And that happened a lot to me with my international students that came from other countries with a lot of experience that were applying for level entry roles, but they had 5 years of experience. And if they were applying for very, very level entry roles, they were over get seen because they're overqualified, and managers are afraid that they'll get this job, use it as a stepping stool, and leave. And so no manager
Hmm.
wants to hire somebody for 3 months. So I love what you're sharing here, because like, as a job seeker, we always think like companies have all the leverage, that we have to be perfect. And
Hmm.
it's true. It's not. Like we understand, as at least last time I heard, humans are still making that final hiring decision.
Hmm. Yeah, and there's data that actually shows that people hire who they like,
Yeah.
right? I know that I don't know if it's necessarily ethical, right? Possibly illegal in some situations, but unfortunately, that's just human nature, right? So if you don't connect with those hiring managers during the interview, it's going to be very hard to get a job.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
also want to ask you too, something that we were talking about is the idea of you get rejected even when you're fully qualified. I struggle
Mhm.
with what to tell people when they say that to me too. My usual response is something along the lines of, well, there could be things that are outside of your control. Maybe they hired someone internally. It doesn't mean rejection does not mean that you weren't qualified. It just means you weren't chosen.
Mhm.
So I'm also curious, maybe from like a mindset perspective and rejection management perspective, how you encourage your clients to continue to keep going in the face of rejection.
Yeah, I think it's important that before we even he or she goes to the interview, that I prep them they might get rejected, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important that their mindset before they even go, that they should absolutely do their best, do use all the strategies that I'm teaching during my coaching with them. But to know, I had a candidate that happened to yesterday. She got rejected and she was very bummed out because she was hoping that she was going to get an offer, right? So every time a candidate is being interviewed, they think that, okay, I'm going to get this is going to be it, this is going to be it. So I think it's very important to set those expectations from day one. Even when I'm training with candidates specifically for placements of jobs, or if I'm working with my clients, that we always want to do best. If we don't get this offer or this job, this is a great experience for you. This is great practice for you, because more likely than not, it's not going to be one interview, right? More likely than not, you're going to interview for a couple of different companies to actually land a role. So I think it's very important to set those expectations from the get-go. If obviously, like, we want to get that offer, we want to move to the next level, but it's okay if we don't, right? A lot of the times what happens is jobs, something that happened recently that was very interesting is that the role got put on hold, right? So that happens sometimes. The role doesn't exist, so they're putting it externally because they have to, but they're actually promoting an internal candidate, but they have to show that they actually have interviewed external
Mhm.
candidates and given them the chance. So I always one of my candidates or clients to understand that the role might not exist, but this is a great experience for you because the practice makes it perfect. The more interviews you go on, the more comfortable you're going to be doing those interviews, and you're going to start slowly building confidence too. You're going to be able to sell yourself better.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I had a client once who was in a very long, several rounds interview process for a role that I think was about 80 to 90, it was somewhere in the 80 to 90K range. And at one point he was like, I don't want to keep doing this. This is so many interviews. And like, he wanted at least 100K. And he's like, this isn't even the salary I want. But it was the only interview he had at the moment. And I was like, I'm going to encourage you to keep moving forward until they don't move forward with you, because I want you to get more practice and more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then he got an interview at Deloitte, which was, I think, 120K. And he rocked it because he had so much practice with interviewing. And he was like, I'm really glad I did all those interviews because now I felt
Yeah.
confident in my 120K interview and I did really well. So I love that idea of every experience and every effort that you put into your job search is worth it, even if it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
result in the exact job offer result that you're looking for. So that's really phenomenal. Daniel, did
It
you have any
Yeah,
follow-ups?
I
yeah.
also I just want to add something really quick.
Yeah.
I think it's also very important to continue interviewing with other companies and continue applying, even if you're in the final stages of interviews. Even if the offer is like almost there, or they already told you they're going to make an offer. Never
Mhm.
limit. You should never limit yourself from other opportunities until you have signed the offer, you have started the job. You should continue interviewing because there might be another job. There's also something very interesting. I think it's probably psychology that once we have the job offer coming, your confidence is like
Yeah.
off the roof, right? Like you don't care anymore if your interview doesn't go as well. So you feel more confident, you're able to sell yourself better. And then a
You
lot of
get
the
more
times I've had
offers. Yes, you
yeah,
get more
and then
offers.
I've had candidates who told me, "Oh my God, I didn't even think I did that well. I mean, I tried, but didn't even give my 100%, and I think I have another offer coming." So it just shows how much confidence really plays into it. And when you feel like you have nothing else to lose, or that you really don't have anything to lose because you already have another offer or another company you're interviewing for, or whatever it is, it's so much easier to be yourself in the
Yeah.
interview, right? And really sell yourself and show what you can do and the things you've done in the past. I think I also think that everyone kind of goes through obstacles, right? Like when they're looking for a job and so on. But once you start getting those offers, it's always so exciting, and it's like the best part of the
Yeah.
entire job search.
It was all worth it. And yes, it was so obvious that when someone got an offer and they were still interviewing and applying, that the offers will come in threes. It's for the conviction. Like you go into a level, have nothing to lose. And then
Yeah.
that gives you then leverage, which is incredible. And I also want to add one more point on what you guys were saying. Like I had so one of our favorite questions to ask, like when you get rejected, I would always tell our candidates like a no today is not a no tomorrow. Like they're not saying
Hmm.
no, you'll never get a job in this team, in this organization, in this industry. They're just saying at this time somebody was just a better fit for the opportunity. And so we always trained our job seekers to follow up and say, hey, thank you so
Hmm.
much. It was an amazing experience going into interview. Is there any other role within the organization that you think that my background would be a better fit for, right? And so because even if they say no, like it doesn't matter, it doesn't change anything. And this particular client of ours was interviewing with Salesforce. To your point, got to the final, the feedback was like, hey, uh, we really like you, but there was just someone that had a little bit more relevant experience, and we decided to go with them. So he asked that question. He goes, hey, actually, really good point. My friend, who is a manager at a different department that I grab lunch with, literally told me this morning that he was opening up a role that I actually think matches your qualifications. Let me connect you with them. So what happened in
Hmm.
that scenario is that the recruiter ultimately reached out back to the candidate. He got directly moved to the final round of interviews, and he ultimately got the
Hmm.
job, right? And it's like that's the perfect example of like a no today doesn't mean a no tomorrow.
Yeah.
And just because you were slightly not the best candidate for that role, you ended up being the perfect candidate for another role. And it was actually more aligned with what he wanted to do, and so it actually ended up working out perfectly. And so
Yeah.
it was great. Yeah.
I actually have a similar story. We actually had a scrum master that we were looking for, and we presented to candidates, and the hiring manager again had a really hard time deciding between both of them. Had to hire someone, hired one of them. 6 months later, they actually were expanding. They bought another company. They were expanding their team, and they were hiring for another scrum master. So I reached out to the original candidate, and then they were still very interested in interviewing her. And once they've interviewed her, I think they only did like one interview, I think, at that point, and then they just hired her. And so I think even from a candidate standpoint or job seeker standpoint, you should be doing that too, right? So in a month or two, if you're still looking in 6 months or so, you should absolutely still reach out to those recruiters or hiring managers and remind them about yourself, right? Sometimes they forget. They might have another role coming. They might that first person might not have worked out. That has happened
Yeah.
too. That it's then it's a much easier process. I also really think that one thing that you've mentioned that we haven't really discussed too much yet is networking, right? And building those relationships. I think applying to jobs is great, using job boards is great, but really, truly, 70 to 80% of roles are filled through networking and relationship building. So I think it's if you're just applying to job boards, the chances of you getting a job is what, like 10-20%. But if you're actually networking, meeting people, going to hiring events is also something that's really, really great, remote or in person, because that hiring manager or that recruiter that you have been trying to get a hold of is now in front of you.
Yeah.
So I always suggest that if the company is doing hiring events, even if they're not looking for, they don't have an opening for a job you're looking for, still go, especially if it's like one of the companies that you really want to work for. Go meet the
Yeah.
recruitment team, give them your resume, build a relationship with them, make that first impression really great. So when they have a job that aligns with your skills, they're gonna be like, huh, I actually remember Nick was really great. I remember Nick. Let me find his resume.
And staying top of
Um,
mind with those recruiters. It's like it
yeah.
doesn't hurt to have like some sort of like a CRM or
Hmm.
an Excel file where you're reaching out to the recruiters or even the hiring managers, like especially when you've been networking and
Yeah.
it's a company that you eventually want to work with, or you build a really great relationship with a manager that you interviewed that was awesome. And then like there's like a story. I had a candidate that was interviewing with Bloomberg, and
Hmm.
absolutely loved the manager. It was somebody that she had networked out through LinkedIn, and the manager ultimately decided to go with another candidate. But you really don't know what's going on in the back end. She stayed in
Hmm.
contact with the manager. 3 months later, messaged the manager and said, "How are you doing?" She's like, "Just a lot of changes. Let's connect in 2 weeks." Ends up happening is the manager was interviewing with IBM. She moved to IBM, and in IBM, she was going to be able to build her own team. And then reached out to the candidate and says, "Hey, I didn't want to hire you from Bloomberg, and I couldn't tell you why because I actually wanted you to come with me to IBM. Like I loved you, but I just didn't want you to get in Bloomberg because if you work at
Yeah.
Bloomberg, I couldn't take you with me. Like I would be
Yeah.
against
I
the
love that.
and so ultimately, she's like, IBM, this is even a better company. It was like 50% more than what she was going to make at Bloomberg. It was like a higher role. And all because she like thanked the manager, never burned the bridge, wasn't like, oh, you
Hmm.
didn't pick me, I hate you. And you
Yeah.
continue to network and you just don't know what's going on the back end.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's actually now that I'm even doing staffing like a recruitment agency, there's so many roles that are never posted.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many roles we get that are never posted. There's a lot of different reasons that the roles are not posted. It could be someone's in the performance review and they're not doing very well, so they're gonna get let go, but they don't want to post the role, right? Or they could be like a company restructuring and they don't want to let the team know so people don't freak out, right? So they're thinking that possibly they might lose their job. So there's a lot of internal things that could be going on that roles are never posted online. So if you're not networking, you're not meeting people, you're not reaching out to these recruiters, you probably will never know that those roles even exist. One other thing I think is really great is, especially if you're like starting to look for a job, to always look at your LinkedIn and search if any recruiter has ever reached out to you for any role. And if most likely the answer is yeah, and to reach out to that recruiter at that time. And maybe at that point you were not interested, but now you are, and reach out to that recruiter and tell them that you are looking now and you're interested to see what they have, if they have any specific roles that you're looking for. There's a lot of times that candidates don't even realize that, like a year ago, someone reached out to them and they completely forgot they ever reached out and they just weren't looking at that time. So they didn't even think twice. And then they search their LinkedIn messages. And they're like, oh my God, I have like 4 recruiters that reached out to me last year. Let me actually get back to them and
Yeah.
see maybe they now have some positions for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Genius.
Ellie,
Go ahead.
I don't know if you know, but we have been crushing it with time. It's been such amazing conversations.
Yeah.
Anna, let me just ask you, can you share a little bit more about what you do and how you work with job seekers? If people listening to this podcast want to learn more about what working with you looks like and how to get a hold of you, what would be the place to get a hold of you and what can they expect working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually launching a job seeker cohort in May that we will kind of go through every single stage of job search and coach in a group setting of exactly what to look for, what not to do, what to do, and really what works now. I think the biggest thing is that Melissa Grabner is my partner, we are launching this cohort to help people to actually almost kind of like open the door and show them what really is going on in the back, because we both of us work a lot with hiring managers, so we actually know what happens behind the doors, right? So we know what the hiring managers actually say, what they're looking for, what they like, what they don't like. So we're able to open that door to all of the job seekers and actually share this information that I think you cannot really find anywhere else. And we will actually be very honest, very open with our clients of what really works today in this crazy difficult market and what to do and what not to do, so that way you don't waste 6, 9, 10 months looking for a job and you can really expedite. And instead of you learning those mistakes and going on interviews or not going on interviews, we can save you a ton of time and you're able to actually find a job much faster and not have to burn through all your savings.
Amazing. And
Absolutely.
where can they get a hold of you or learn more?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best. Probably I'm on LinkedIn. You can DM me, definitely reach out to me. There's also on my profile, you can join, apply for the job search accelerator, and we will ask you some questions. And then if you're the right kind of fit for us as well, we will get you on and hopefully get you to that exciting job offer.
Amazing. Anna, thank you so much for being here. Ellie, as always, you're awesome. If you're listening to this podcast and you found value in this, I have one little favor to ask you. Please leave us a review and share it with a friend. We don't run ads in this podcast, and all we ask in return, if you find value, is to just let us know by leaving us in a review and subscribing. Thank you so much, everyone, and see you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.